Hello and welcome to our finals recap for the Lyon finals major this year. Obviously, we're going to talk through some of the crazy things that happened on playoff Saturday and Sunday. If you want more in-depth analysis of days 1, 2, and 3, I actually already made videos about that you can check out on this same channel. So, playoff Sunday. Let's start with the first matches there. There was Wildcard Geekay. So Geekay unfortunately took out OCE's last hope. But I think almost everyone would say Wildcard did so much better than anticipated. They did get a game off of Geekay here, as you can see, but it was pretty one-sided. Geekay did a good job of shutting Wildcard down and responding to that. So Wildcard, they had their run where they beat Furia and they beat Dignitas. They swept both those teams. Weren't quite able to transition it in front of the crowd and show that same level of dominance. But, they played well, they played hard, and I think this is a good blueprint for how they can off season this year and come back and do even better next year in RLCS. So that's that. Then had Ultimates KCorp. This was a sweep, and I don't know what to make of this. Ultimates obviously had almost no offense. You can see they scored 2 goals during the entire series compared to 10 or 12 from Carmine Core. So kind of a tough going for them, considering they had already beaten Carmine Core earlier in the tournament. So it's tough to, what do you say you make from that? Well, Carmine Core played better in front of the crowd, and they played better in the best of 7 series. So ultimately they advanced and beat the Ultimates. So if you have any opinions about that, please let me know. I'd be kind of curious to think, what do you guys see that was different between those 2 series? It seemed like Carmine Core probably just really studied the film from that loss and came back with strategies that neutralized a lot of what the Ultimates were trying to do. It also felt like the Ultimates kind of stopped doing as much team play, and there was a lot more passing, I think, when they beat Carmine Core. And even when they lost to NRG in Game 7 here, there was a lot more team play from Ultimates in those matchups, whereas they kind of felt like they fell back on individual and solo plays when they played Carmine Core, and it didn't really work out for them. So that was the lower bracket quarterfinals. Then that left us with this top 4: Falcons, Carmine Core, NRG, and Geekay. NRG swept Geekay, which was good, especially for people saying NRG had too easy of a bracket. One of the facts that kept getting brought up, especially Saturday, was that no EU teams were eliminated by non-EU teams, or only EU teams were eliminating EU teams. So there was still kind of a lot of regional discussion about, well, EU might not be doing as well, but they're not getting eliminated by these other regions either. Obviously, there's plenty of matchups here where other regions beat EU, but for elimination matches, that didn't really start happening until the quarterfinals, because you can see Carmine Core beat Ninjas. Geekay, went all the way to face NRG. So finally, in the semifinals, you saw Carmine Core and Geekay lose to a different region to kind of quiet down that narrative a little bit, I think. I still think, EU definitely didn't do as well as they wanted to here at Worlds, but honestly, 2 teams, top 4, that's still a pretty solid result, all things considered. So yeah, that Energy Geekay series, Energy honestly just looked fantastic. Geekay felt like they couldn't quite find their rhythm. There was a lot of points in the series where it seemed like when NRG was winning on offense, they had Geekay really pinned into low boost situations, and they were able to capitalize on it. And then vice versa, when Geekay was on offense and had energy on their backfield, even in those low boost situations, this NRG team and these players play very well with when they're boost starved and do a better job than pretty much any other team on defense when they are losing their back boosts on those rotations. So they're tough to beat. It seems like to beat NRG and get points on them, the demo strategy is probably one of the better strategies to beat this NRG team. But you guys let me know what you think. So NRG advances on to the grand final there with a sweep over Geekay. And then Falcons, Carmine. This was a great match. Super back and forth, as you can see here. Falcons did get the final win here. It just felt like their defense and midfield control really stopped Carmine from being more effective. But I don't even think Carmine played that bad. I think Falcons played really well. And we'd be curious to see what everyone thought about this. In a way, this was also its own kind of grand final, best of 7 between the two favorite teams, Carmine and Falcons. And it would have been interesting. I think if you shuffled this around and put Carmine with NRG and Geekay with Falcons, I'm not positive NRG would have beaten Carmine. I mean, NRG looked really good, but that matchup has been pretty tough for them. But NRG was, I guess, fortunate enough to get Geekay to take him to the grand finals. And then stylistically, NRG has a really good matchup against Falcons, or at least they have this season. And really last season too, because they won a major last year over Falcons. So Falcons, NRG, Falcons obviously coming off of wins at the Raleigh Major, and BWC, and NRG coming off of what we would consider to be a slightly disappointing season based on their previous results, but obviously there was still like top 4 in pretty much everything they did, or top 6 at the very least might be their worst placement. I'd have to double check that. And so NRG came out, they were really locked in, they played super well in front of the crowd, didn't look like nerves were affecting them at all. Whereas I think Falcons even had 1 or 2 whiffs or misses that I'm thinking of from that series. So NRG came out. It was the better team in that series. I think that was pretty undeniable. These matchups, as you can see, were all very close. Every single one of them was within a 1-goal difference. So there's a lot of things that could have shook out in a different way. But NRG obviously did what they had to do to get the win. And they should be extremely proud of those results. They voted Beast Mode for the MVP. Honestly, no complaints on Beast Mode being the season MVP. He did have moments, I think, where people were a little bit, me included, were critical of NRG's results. So for me, I would probably lean towards Daniel being that MVP, but I think I'm not mad at Beast Mode getting it at all. I don't think that's a bad pick. Let me know what you guys think, or putting Atomic in there, because Atomic was very strong at the beginning of the season, and then he played well in this tournament as well. So honestly, all 3 of the guys played really great, so you could make an argument for any one of them being the MVP. I think each person had their moments. I kind of put Daniel up there, so you can see Daniel was picked as the North American RLCS MVP, whereas Beast Mode was picked as the overall RLCS 2025 season MVP. So, combine those two together, you got to be feeling good. Atomic obviously had only gotten second twice at Worlds, and so finally this time he got the win, which is great for Atomic. Basically cements his status as the greatest player of all time from North America in RLCS. I think that, to me, the numbers and the level of competition that we're currently in, that confirms that Atomic is the GOAT of NA. But if you feel differently, please, let us know in the comments and share why you feel that, a different player is a better candidate for the best, I guess, the GOAT. And, Atomic's still playing, and I didn't see anything about retirement from him. So maybe these guys run it back next year, or I don't know, which would be interesting to see. Speaking of retirement, we also had Scribbles, the 15-year-old player from Space Station, announced his retirement from RLCS, which was kind of an interesting thing, and I would say pretty unexpected. It seemed like it was serious based on the Twitter threads I was reading, but he's going to be focusing on school, and I'm sure he's got some stuff on his mind that he wants to lock in and get ready for university or college here or whatever's next for him. And I think he just kind of felt like, hey, this was my best effort. Probably not feeling like doing it again next year, or I don't want to make my life based around this. And I can respect that. I mean, he played fantastic. It's a little bit sad for NA as a region because, arguably the best prospect, it's only 15. Arguably the best prospect of this season was Scribbles. There's a bunch of other really good players that are like 18, 19 years old. But, so to be 15 and be at that same level, insane. And so hopefully we see more of him in the future, but whatever he wants to do, we got to support it and give him our best. Maybe I think, assuming he doesn't just stop playing the game for 3 years, he's going to get a CRL scholarship to Baylor or somewhere and probably just ball out there in a way that's a better balance for what he wants out of his life. But I don't know. I don't know him at all. So, just kind of an interesting thing that happened. Let's see. Is there anything else? I saw that Paris is announced for a major next year. So, good job to the French crowd for keeping them there. I'm assuming that means the first major is going to be probably in NA. Could be cool. Honestly, a Brazil major, still kind of thinking maybe that would be kind of fun. That would be cool to have a little SAM major. It's not as far of a flight for us in NA as the EU majors are. But obviously Brazil is super far from a lot of other places. So it will be interesting to see. A lot of interesting things coming in RLCS next year. I'll cover that in a different video. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on how the playoffs went. I was a bit of a doubter. If you look at my original predictions, I had Carmine Corp winning it all, and I had Energy going out top 6 when they faced Vitality. Vitality went out, I believe, top 12. They had a pretty disappointing results. I had them all the way in the grand finals, so that was probably the biggest misprediction I made. Was I had Vitality going much further in the tournament, and obviously they didn't do that. They just didn't play up to that level. Sorry, let me pull that up. Yeah, they went out top 12th. Yes, yeah, they didn't make it to that next level after getting eliminated by... Sorry, I should remember this. They got eliminated by NIP. Yes, Ninjas and Pajamas eliminated Vitality, and that was a good series. So pretty disappointing result for them. Very excited to see what they do with their roster. This is like the only roster where I would be truly shocked if they stayed the exact same next year. Just because if the team that had, from BDS the previous year of Monkey Moon Exotic Drally, they split up to try something else. Obviously, now it looks like Drally got the better of that by going on to Carmine Corp, and Carmine Corp had a better season. So it looks like Drally got the better of that BDS roster of Monkey Moon and Exotic. Obviously, they're still all top players. They went to all the lands this year. We didn't see any major drop-offs there. Not the best results at the lands, besides Carmine Corp winning. But, overall, very interesting season for EU. Let me know your thoughts on how that region did as well. And I think we can just wrap it there. There's going to be more RLCS content continuing to break things down, hopefully doing some collaboration videos also coming up in the next couple weeks. Thank you so much for all the support this season. It has been absolutely unreal. When I started this season, I really had like 0 subscribers, and now I'm over at 400. So it's been really, really amazing and very humbling to see all the support and the comments. And I just know that it's very appreciated. And when I see people comment multiple times, like, I'm still at the size where I definitely recognize people. So thank you so much for the people who have been consistently commenting and it's been really fun and very encouraging. So thank you so much for that. And NRG on top. I got my NA Raleigh Major hat signed by the NRG guys. I believe it's on the crown here is where I have them signing it from all 4 of the NRG squad. Thank you so much for watching. NA on top as always, and pleasant surprise to the end of this RLCS season. But I say don't change the channel. We're going to be continuing to cover RLCS and Rocket League and these off-season tournaments. And, don't be a stranger. Thank you so much for all the support and everything. Let me know your thoughts about the entire major in Lyon in these comments. And thank you so much for watching. Bye.